Well, welcome everybody tonight to our extended learning calls for the North Dakota EHDI project. We're happy that you're all here. We record all of these so that if there are folks that want to come back and listen to them, I believe they're going to be included on the Why Not State EHDI program website, so they'll be there for a continued amount of time. This has kind of been a partnership with North Dakota EHDI and Family Voices. So Tori, if you don't mind, I'm going to have you introduce our speakers for this evening.
Hi, like Deneen said, I'm Tori Allen. I'm the North Dakota EHDI family representative, and it's been a great series already. And tonight we have Sarah Kennedy from National Hands and Voices. She's a family leadership and language and learning with the Technical Assistance Center. Hopefully I got that right, the FL3. And she's been so kind to kind of come and talk and do some learning with all of us in North Dakota today. So Sarah, I'll let you say anything else you want to say about yourself or about National Hands and Voices and turn it over to you.
Very good. Thank you for having me, Tori, and Deneen for hosting and all of you here. I hope that this will be interactive, so feel free to stop me anytime. And we'll just be sharing about what the FL3 Center is and how it can support families and families who are supporting other parents, and then parents who are becoming leaders in the system. So I'm going to share my screen here a bit. Let me get that going. Can everybody see?
Yes.
Great. Okay, let me get it on. Okay, you should be able to see the slideshow then. Great. Well, as everyone said, I'm Sarah Kennedy. I do have that really long title, but mostly I am a mom of a young deaf adult. I have 4 children, and you see them there. This was about the time that our daughter was identified. They were all actually born at home. So we missed the hearing screening as it was being developed here in Colorado, where I live. And folks asked me as she was growing, you know, did you have the screening? Well, I thought they meant the metabolic screening. And of course she had that. But my midwife had not known yet about the hearing screening. She had rung a bell when Maddie was born. Maddie's the middle sister there with all those blondes. And Maddie appeared to hear right away. In fact, we're on video saying that we thought she'd be an early talker. Well, that was not true. So she was identified about 14 months with severe to profound deafness. And I had to go home and Google. And at that time, Google wasn't very well developed to find out what all that meant, because the doctor didn't have anything for me to read. The audiologist said they'd talk to me again next week. So they kind of sent me home without a lot of information. I know things are a lot different these days, but this still happens to babies born at home. And we had that big question, what do we do next? What's our plan of action? I came from a healthcare background, and I was used to having a particular plan, no matter what the diagnosis was. And I was so surprised to find that parents had so much say in how their child might learn language. So there was a lot to learn there, and I call this the learning parent years. Then I found the folks at Hands and Voices. Back then, it was mainly the Colorado chapter, and now there are 41 independent chapters, including North Dakota, and we have 5 provisional chapters, and even an interesting group in Kenya who is working on their chapter. So international at this point. And through the FL3 Center, which is a HRSA-funded technical assistance center, we support 59 other family-based organizations that serve families who have deaf and hard of hearing children. And what is that all supposed to be about? Well, it's support for the families themselves, for those who are becoming parent leaders. Obviously, we all have to be a leader for our own child and our own family, but sometimes we also support other families. And then support for those chapters and the family-based organizations and our EHDI partners, the EHDI organizations like North Dakota EHDI. And influencing all those systems that serve families, the medical systems, the public health systems, education, and community. So we're involved in all of those realms. Being deaf or hard of hearing doesn't just impact the ears, it impacts a whole lot of that child's life and the family's life too. So that family journey is rarely as smooth as the picture makes this look. There's a lot to learn, as I said, technology choices, language choices. How do you know you have a good audiologist or a good early interventionist? Well, there are things that we provide that help families learn about those services and to learn to ask better questions. And if necessary, to find other providers outside of their immediate area. As parents of kids who are rare, sometimes we really have to look further for better, more appropriate services, no matter what that service might be. And I know you have the North Dakota EHDI roadmap. I was able to watch one of the first sessions, and I encourage all parents to watch all of your sessions. I think it's such great information. The more informed you are, the better you can support your child. And there's just no getting around that. One of the things we did during COVID was realize that our families weren't able to go to the audiology offices and go to schools and kind of have that natural ability to meet other professionals and other parents. And we created this online virtual waiting room. And we tried to put in all the kinds of things and information that you might find in a waiting room. So you can browse this. If you look at each of these figures, pops up more information. There's a video on hearing screening. You can browse the brochures in the bookshelf. You can even write a note to a parent guide and ask a question. If we get a question that comes in, we will try to send it to whatever local state has a chapter or a family-based organization, but we'll give some support from our end as well. But this section is all about support that you might not be able to have found easily during COVID. And we've kept it up because it's been pretty popular. But a new thing we have done is really start focusing in on language outcomes. So we created this on our website called Off to a Great Start. And you're one of the first people to see it. We did show it at the EHDI conference in Denver. And if you're new to all of this, EHDI is Early Hearing Detection and Intervention. And we just had that conference a couple weeks ago. So Off to a Great Start is, again, with each of these symbols, you can click on something that relates to supporting your child. So we'll take a closer look at some of those. So it includes a general developmental set of principles for deaf and hard of hearing children. It's really important for our families to understand how our kids develop in meeting all of their milestones. And we know that kids, 50% or so of kids have an additional learning need or learning challenge. And our families like to call that idea deaf and hard of hearing plus. So the plus kids may not meet those milestones in the same way, and they meet them at their own time, but we still should have high expectations for those kids, once we figure out how kids learn best and how to support them in the best way we can. There's some great information on 8 reasons to say yes to early intervention. Why would a family want to say yes? What are the benefits? It's a 1-page document that's family friendly. If folks have questions about what early intervention means and why they would want to be involved in it. We had one rural family recently say that their doctor told them early intervention programs were for poor people. Like, no, no, it's for everybody. The whole idea is to support those babies birth to 3 so that they have less impact from their disability, from their hearing difference, or from anything else that might have been identified. There's also the 5 reasons to say yes to assessment that goes into more detail about why it's important to have those regular progress monitoring in birth to 3. We can't afford to wait a whole year to make sure that the baby is on the right track with language outcomes. So it's got to be done every 6 months. And I like to say there should be progress made at every visit. And if not, there should be a good reason why. Are we checking the equipment? Are we using the right approach? Do we need to have a critical conversation about changing a plan? Those are just really important things to watch. There's a whole set of language and literacy tip sheets. I'm a language nerd, so I love these, but not everybody understands what pragmatics is and those kind of language terms. But these break them down one bit at a time, and they have some suggested activities that families can do with their little ones. Making a plan for your child is one of my favorites. It's a family guide to the recommendations for early intervention. And it talks about each principle and then what it means to you as a family member and strategies you might use with your IFSP team. So I see that next time early intervention is going to be presenting. That would be a great one to review before you have that video happening next time. We're going to jump into a little more about the family activity guide in more detail. So let's look at that. Oh, I did want to mention that the Off to a Great Start is all shareable. If you go into the webpage, there are badges you could share on your own websites. We don't want this to just stay on our website. Feel free to share. And so I wanted to let you know that this is a great family toolbox, and it doesn't do as much good if it's just stuck on our website. So the family support guide it's a little bit high level. It's intended for parents who are supporting other parents, but it is usable by parents who want to delve in deeper to more of these topics. The idea is on the front cover that there's a learning parent on the right side and the supporting parent on the left. And those people have a mutual relationship where they're giving support and information, and the supporting parent is modeling how you do this every day in the world. You have to get up when you're a parent and do something with your child to help grow language. All those theoretical discussions about signing or not signing, wearing hearing aids all waking hours or not, they come down to the parent's ability to make that happen on a day-to-day basis at home, and probably not with just one child, but several, and all the competing demands that a new family has at home. So that's the idea of the principle of this book. And then in each page, it might give you additional information to look at, and then activities that a family could do to learn more about, say, empowerment or advocacy or any of those skills that are probably too small for you to read. If there were other language resources, we did add them in here, and I know we'll be updating this frequently. There is this little smile icon, and that particularly highlights anything having to do with language outcomes. So the pink and the blue and the pink and the green refer to these principles of well-being, knowledge, and empowerment. And we thought those were the three most important things to help support in a new family so that they felt competent and ready and confident to make good decisions for their child and to carry them out. So we have things to learn and things, activities to support each section of these. So for example, if this section on child well-being in the blue looks at self-determination, we broke it down into, the child needs to feel good about themselves. You might look at activities like the social emotional tip sheet and do some of the things listed there, like celebrating accomplishments and giving a child a chance to do something new, and then celebrating any progress they made towards the new, like learning to ride a bike or getting dressed, choosing what they were going to wear that day, any of those kinds of things. It might also be the meaningful relationships section, where we talk about deaf adults tell us that we should not say, never mind, or I'll tell you later. Kids have the right to have access to what's going on in their own family and to be included in everything that happens. If your hearing child overheard you and your partner say something, then your deaf child gets to know what that is also. So that's that whole idea of never mind is just something we don't say in our households. And as a hearing parent, that is something that I had to learn. So that's just an example of something you might find in the family support guide. So the FL3 Center is all about helping answer, what do I do next? And the new HRSA grant was just given, and our goals continue to be supporting EHDI programs and meeting their objectives to meet the 136, identified by 1 month, diagnosed or screened by 1 month, identified by 3 months, and into early intervention by 6 months. Being a technical assistant, when needed, when asked, we're here 24/7 practically to help all of our chapters and our EHDI programs improve their ability to reach families and to support families. We want to see more families trained to serve as family leaders in EHDI systems and help them understand the regulations and the systems and how all that works, and just to sustain our collaborative partnerships. Always looking to partner with new folks. I have been assigned to the orange area where you are, but as of April 1st, I got moved to the green. So, but I still wanted to do this session for you. Brooke Montgomery, who runs our social media, is actually going to be assigned to your area, but I'm always available too. So Brooke has a child who is deaf plus. She has lots of different experience than I have, but we work as a team. So if there's something she needs to know, she can reach out to any of us about that. So again, every one of our staff is assigned to certain regions to help with technical assistance. We find that families want different kinds of support, and they want it all the time, maybe. So starting at the bottom, maybe it's this anonymous kind of support, like a newsletter, or just reading a blog, or the Hanson Voices app that I'm going to talk about. The looking at the websites, it's something where it's a low commitment. You're not having to meet people, but you have information that's up and that's accurate and up to date. And then there's the passive information, like an email blast or following YouTube, or resource guides, that kind of thing. And then there's the more interactive, like a group workshop, a bit more like tonight, or the one-on-one support like Guide by Your Side programs or educational advocacy or facilitating connections between parents. And at different times, parents need different kinds of support. So we think a healthy family-based organization is giving lots of these different kinds of support that's available. Just a few more resources I wanted to share. I did talk about the 8 reasons to say yes. This is an example of the literacy tip sheets. They're in English and Spanish, and they go over, all those language semantics, cognitive development, early literacy development, lots of information there that our parents helped write with the scientific literacy and language team. We definitely take information from other chapters and family-based organizations and share with others. And I thought this, there's some good ideas here, like the May Tuesday topics. Some chapters just meet virtually every week or even twice a month. It depends on, what's important to their group. There's all kinds of different topics that might be produced. Dads meeting other dads is a really popular one. And Colorado Hands and Voices did a workshop on their parent funding toolkit, which actually got a mention in the family support guide. That's all about how to appeal your insurance, or looking at Medicaid, or looking at nonprofits that support purchasing hearing aids and other equipment if insurance is just not an option. I thought this would be a good time to have North Dakota come on and share a little bit about how they are supporting parents. If you want to come on screen, I don't know, Deanna or Jerica, or who's available.
So Melinda, do you want to talk a little bit about, she is the initial contact person usually for when they are first identified,
Okay.
and
Hi there. I
Hey,
have a few
Melinda.
minutes. Hi, I have a few minutes here before I have to jump off, but
Gotcha. No
yeah,
worries.
I can share a little bit about being an initial contact. So you want like the whole process? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Just the highlights.
Just the highlights. Okay, so after we get that referral, then I just reach out, introduce myself, tell them the basics of what Hands and Voices is, and then I just make sure that they have all of our contact information so that if they ever need to reach out, that they can reach out and ask any questions that they may need. Some people need something right away. I think you said it when you said that everybody's support looks different.
Right.
So I basically just say, like, it's so hard because I say, do you have any questions at the time? But nobody ever knows what they need to ask or what they need at that time. So it's basically an open door policy. And so once I make that initial contact, there are some families that reach out frequently. Some families I just touch base with. I know that they may need some support later on, so I might just touch base later on, but.
Right, and I imagine some of those phone calls are like an hour long and some are 10 minutes. So it just depends, right?
Yes, yep, correct. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's just great that you are making that initial contact so quickly and putting a face to the name of Hands and Voices, and then letting them know, you are this tremendous resource right in their state that can share information about local resources. And then you have all access to all of this as well. So that's wonderful. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Just a few more things. Some are Hands and Voices and some are not. So the rural living that I'm circling on here and the Fathering a Deaf and Hard of Hearing Child come from the EHDI Parent to Parent Committee that we chair. It's a multi-agency, professional and parent kind of think tank. And we vote as soon as we finish a project on what our next project will be. The CDC gives us a Zoom room, but otherwise we're all volunteers putting these things together. So the onboarding checklist for dads has been really popular, and it was written by dads, the moms in the room and the female professionals and male professionals just assisted, but the dads really put the work into it. And they created this list of all the things you should be thinking about, and even a short list of tips for professionals in dealing with dads. So I think it's very cool. And then the rural living tips we just finished, and it's also been really popular. It looks at the issues that a rural family faces. And I know most of North Dakota is rural. So it talks about everything from advocacy, finding good services, figuring out what to do if you can't find good providers that are a match to your child's needs, and where you might find other supports that maybe could do a train the trainer kind of option, or even like technology and internet costs and what to do if your internet doesn't work, all these kinds of things that, our folks in our big cities that tend to house the EHDI programs are not always as aware as they might be. So it's a real education. I'm reading it. And when we presented at EHDI, the rural mom who presented with me just had so many stories that she shared where folks just weren't meeting her daughter's needs well until she learned exactly how to navigate the system and what kinds of things to ask, and the laws that help back her up as well. We do have a new educational advocacy book out this last year, and it's also in Spanish. And we've got some ASTRA, as we call it, advocacy support and training webinars that have been going on. This very last one was about the National Association of Special Ed Directors and their guidelines for deaf and hard of hearing students. I'd encourage any of you with school age kids to download the free copy of that book and to use it whenever you can. We've got a parent event guide that's available for anybody, just gives you ideas about low cost, small events to the bigger one-day conferences and fundraising events and even camps and things you might want to think about, checklists, volunteer orientation, all kinds of things. I did want to mention too, Fostering Joy is one of our projects. We realized a few years ago that we really need to make a place for just enjoying our kids and encouraging other families to really take time every day to make sure they're celebrating what's going great and how wonderful our kids are and what an impact they've made on our lives. Attachment, to me, is the root of language development. And if you have a strong attachment with that child in your house, I feel like a lot of the things that might impact that child won't be as big of a deal. And I hope you know what I mean. And I'm happy to answer a question about that if you like. A few more things. There is the Hands and Voices app here. It's a free app you can find in the App Store. For 90 days, it gives you a tip from a parent, wisdom from deaf and hard of hearing adults, a resource or an article to read. And it's just kind of a jump start into the world of having a deaf and hard of hearing child. There's the podcast for folks that like to listen, and it is transcribed, so there's equal access, but obviously a podcast is more kind of an auditory event. The Hands and Voices Academy is a self-paced course. You can jump in and out of those. They're all free. All of this is free, of course. And there's the deaf, hard of hearing adult to family support class. Like, what is that? How do I get trained? What are the issues? What are some tips? The lead course is all about supporting other families. And data collection is our attempt to look at how can we show our services have an impact. These are all of our social media, and there are separate groups for the military project group. This is nationwide, unilateral hearing loss, deaf, hard of hearing plus, the Spanish group, Manos y Voces, and they also have a quarterly Latino forum, which is open to anybody. And it's amazing to listen to, and there is English access as well. Fostering Joy and Fostering Joy Professionals are two different Facebook groups, and the Our Children's Safety Project, which I am going to share a little bit more about. There are some things coming up I wanted to make sure I said. So the webinar series, Leadership Essentials, Navigating the Path to Success, is a Hands and Voices guide. One who is the coordinator and one is a deaf guide, sharing what they think is important about leadership and parent-to-parent support this April 18th. And then down in June, we've got best practices when serving culturally and linguistically diverse families in educational advocacy. So that's the ASTRA webinar. The Our Children's Safety Project meets 9 times a year. We, back in 2008, I think, a professor came to us and said he was not able to achieve one of his goals during his career. And that goal was to make sure that every family knew who had a deaf or hard of hearing child, that their child was at a greater risk just because of that hearing difference for abuse and neglect. And we don't like to talk about that kind of stuff, but in the Our Project, we are brave enough to have good conversations in order to keep our kids safe. So there's a whole parent safety toolkit, which has great ideas for everything from encouraging your child's independence to overnight stays to growing sexuality, even, understanding themselves as they grow as a young person. Lots of things to read. And you can see we have a wealth of topics that happen once a month. This one in May, I wanted to point out, we'll have a speaker coming to talk about the Star Raft idea. And that's a way to build a community of support around a deaf or hard of hearing child as they grow, for connection and safety, especially for kids as they're leaving high school and entering adulthood. So I'm looking forward to that. The gentleman came highly recommended by one of our parents in Michigan, and we're looking forward to seeing that. We've got the office hours. We just finished talking about the rural families, so I'll be uploading that. And then the next series, 3 times a year, has not yet been decided. So tonight, if you come up with a great idea you want us to discuss, I'll put it on the list because I'm in charge of it next year. The Leadership Book Club is just a time when we get together and we read a book about leadership, and people come from their parents, their professionals, and just come for an hour to discuss it. So it's just a different way to look at leadership development. And then we have the Deaf, Hard of Hearing Plus events through that Facebook group at least twice a year. They did just have one in March. So I hope this gives you a kind of a big picture of what the FL3 Center does. When I look at how families find support, our existing communities, our friends that we had before our child was identified, our churches that we went to, the places where we work, they don't necessarily know anything about having a deaf or hard of hearing child. So we've really got to nurture our relationships with our fabulous professionals, with adults who are deaf or hard of hearing, with parent-to-parent support, and with all the information that's available, like I have mentioned here. So it's kind of like drinking from a fire hose, but I think the important thing is that human to human connection. So when Melinda reaches out to a family, that's so important. And I still meet new families, and I know a lot of you do too in your work. So that's kind of it for the formal portion. I'm not a learning parent anymore. That group has expanded, and I'm still loving what I do here. I'm not planning to quit anytime soon. I'm the editor for our communicator newspaper, and I wanted to share too that our next issue that will come out in May is our first digital issue. So if you've never seen one of these, you might get a little chance to peek at that next issue. North Dakota Hands and Voices will probably be sharing it. And it's always full of family stories, professional perspectives, stories about education, kids leaving high school and following their dreams, challenges folks have faced, research that's summarized in a family-friendly way. Those kinds of things are articles that we love to put in the newspaper. So let me quit sharing my screen so we can see each other again. I'd love to entertain any questions, comments. That was a fast run through what is the FL3 Center.
I didn't realize that there was so much on there because I haven't been on there since when you were first setting it up and that, so.
Yeah, and I honestly left quite a bit out. So just in terms of the website. So
Yeah, I feel
and
like
that's
you've
why
got
we
enough
wanna-
stuff we could put one thing new each week and just
oh, you could.
there would always be something to educate our families about.
Right. Even if you just wanted to share from Hands and Voices Facebook page, Brooke does a great job just highlighting past resources and then new stuff. So sharing is caring, I figure.
Yep.
And I want to emphasize that we don't expect anybody to know where to find all that stuff on the website. So don't hesitate to send an email, call, text, whatever, and we'll help you find it. There's just so much there, but the
Good.
off to a great start and the virtual waiting room are links from the front page. So I tried to show you how that worked.
I've actually gone onto your website quite a bit and looked at a lot of the resources. I love it. And I have listened to some podcasts, but yeah, there is definitely a lot of information. And now that Eddie is, looking further into the future and really trying to understand like the language acquisition piece and how to
Right.
help support the collaborative efforts to really, expand upon that in the state. One thing I was recently looking at were the language pieces, like you said, with all the pragmatic and all that, and just seeing how possibly to share that with families too. So yeah, so I like your website. It's great.
Right. Well, you might like the language tip sheets then, but there's also a video that goes with each one, and someone's explaining kind of the general idea. Like for pragmatics, we had Dr. Christina Blazer from Idaho State talk with a parent about what does that all mean?
Yeah, and just if there's a parent watching this later after it's recorded and put out on the website, I know your contact information was out there. Eddie's contact information will be out there, North Dakota Hands and Voices. So that's also a great, Family Voices is a great place to go to if watching this and then, you think of a question or something like that. So should all be on the recording, so yeah.
Great. You know, we had a question at the rural family office hours about how do you reach out to the rural families? And I wondered if that was an issue in North Dakota. I imagine it is because it is in most states. How's that going for you guys?
Well, I think initially it's really just a phone call to those new IDs when we get the referral from the EHDI program. I think we work to do family events across the state.
Right.
And we pair up with the parent infant program, which is the teachers of the deaf that work with those birth to 3 kiddos, because they also have staff across the state. And
That's
so,
wonderful. So
yeah.
then if a parent feels comfortable going with their infant provider to
Yeah.
meet new families, that might be a great option.
Yeah.
Nobody
And-
wants to be the only one at a
No.
group. Yeah.
And I think Dickinson is probably a neat example where Melinda is. She's just really built a really strong group of parents. It's not a terribly large city, but they probably have the most family events and they have the most attendance because they've just worked really hard at being consistent about it, which is a little harder in some of our other towns.
Sure.
Just
sure.
with parents being busy and not being able to host as much, but
Right. But consistency does help if you knew, even virtually, if you knew it was once a month and you could say, you know, we always meet at this time, and then text people to remind them. Nobody gets email anymore. Just generation. I don't know what the next thing will be.
Yeah, and not alone. I mean, my daughter was the only deaf, hard of hearing kiddo in our school. And
Yeah,
so
right.
we're not alone. They're out there, just maybe not in your town or very close to you, but that's the biggest thing for parents to know, they're not alone. So
Right. And I think, you know, kind of advertising that I felt so much better when I met another family, even if we had to travel to get
Mhm.
there. You know, I used to host events in the western side of Colorado, and if we had 2 families, I was thrilled. So, because it's rural, they have to go a long way. And it was worth it. Very good.
And I think our Facebook is finally growing too. So there's more and more interaction on there. So that gets, the more people share, the more get that see it. So
That's good. I kind of worry that Facebook is being relegated to us old people,
yes,
but it's harder to interact on Instagram, and I know there's Snapchat. But we haven't found another way to interact as well as the Facebook groups so far, but we keep looking.
yeah.
do have all those other options.
Instagram is just so, you get a shot or a reel or something, and then that's about it. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Every now and then we've done like a Reddit kind of event on a Facebook group where you could just write, you know, text basically, because you're on your cell phone probably. So you're not getting on a camera live, but
Oh,
maybe 2 people are talking or sharing about something and then people can send in comments. So it looks more like sort of a Reddit activity where you're a little more anonymous. And that's gone pretty well. Like you put a time frame on it. Texas has done that. If you ever want to look at what they've done,
okay.
just to try something different, maybe.
Sarah, you and I have similar scenarios with our kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My son Zach was not a newborn screen either.
Okay.
He was just over a year and a half, almost 2, when he was diagnosed. So yeah, it was a interesting time. There was no
Yeah.
hands and voices at that time. At least here, right? So there was
Right, right.
very few to if you wanted that parent to parent connection there, it just wasn't there. So I was part of the group that started the parent to parent in North Dakota. And
Awesome.
then that led to getting involved in Family Voices. So, but yeah, so it was
Oh, that's cool.
interesting.
You
Yeah.
know, personally, I think the late identified among us just worked a little harder, don't you think?
And we kind of worked our
Agree.
butts off. There's no
And
doubt
that's
about
still-
that.
Mine
Still
was
happens. I
well,
mean, even though we're screening 95% or more of the babies in hospitals, there's still that 5% there, and then the home births are not all getting screened.
Yep.
And we know that 136 is the biggest predictor of language outcomes
Mhm.
being on the positive side. That's,
And your daughter is how old now?
she's 106. No, she's 25. She
Okay.
has 3 children now. She only had 2 in that picture.
Wow.
And she was traveling around the country working as a CNA during the post-COVID years, making an obscene amount of money. And then her husband got accepted into air traffic control training. So she's a stay-at-home mom at the moment while he's doing that in Kansas City.
Nice.
Okay.
Good.
How old is your son, Denise?
Zach is 33 and he got his master's degree at the University of Mary as a counselor, and now he is he's a clinical director at the Colville Indian Reservation in Omak,
wow.
Washington. So yeah, he's liking that. So I'm pretty proud of him.
Yeah.
Is
You-
that anywhere near Spokane?
It's about 2.5 hours northwest of Spokane.
Okay. We're
Yeah.
having our leadership conference there in
Okay.
September, and we're always looking for local people to come and share.
Yeah.
So I might have to hit you up about that.
Okay.
That's cool.
Tori, how about Grace? When was she identified?
yeah, we were told she passed her newborn hearing test. I don't know how she did, but she was about 2, and it was me pushing on my doctor to get her tested because we knew something was wrong. And she is now 19 and she's in her first year of college at NDSU in the pre-vet program, and I'm pretty proud of her too. So she's on the honor roll, and we didn't even know if she'd make it to college at the time. So
Right, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah,
so it was really
Jaylee.
nice to talk to the new mom at the EHDI conference who has a little, I think, 2-year-old, and tell her what's going on with my 19-year-old. And I think you could just see the relief in her face. So
Mhm.
that's what I like.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, because when our kids were young, we didn't have anybody, or
No.
yeah.
Right. It seems silly now, but we all had those questions. Will they be able to ride a bike? Will they have a date to prom? Will they get married?
Will they leave the house?
Can
Yeah.
yeah. Can they make enough money to take care of me when I'm old?
That's Jaylee and I just had that conversation yesterday.
And yes, they are off my health insurance and cell phone plan and car insurance now.
I'm waiting for that day.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Yeah,
But
the best,
having that vision.
we got very lucky. The first audiologist that, and no offense to audiologists, but this one was terrible. He was bad, and so was the ENT actually, and they kind of ganged up. But the second audiologist that we had also had a son with just as a hearing impairment similar to Zach's. And she brought him into the office at one of the first appointments to meet him. And I had some wild questions, but he and Zach have been friends ever since. So they check in on each other and see how things are going, even though they live way across the country. So yeah, that was my blessing right there, was finding her. So that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our ENT threw our chart at us when I said I wanted to go to the school for the deaf and have testing done, because 2 audiologists misdiagnosed her. So Jaylee was 4.5 by the time she was diagnosed. And
Mm.
he said, if you go there, you don't come back here. So we went.
Wow, I've never
Yeah.
heard that before.
Yeah.
Wow.
But
I hope that the world has become a little more welcoming since then. The medical and educational and cultural deaf folks all working together a little bit better.
Mhm.
yes, exactly.
But that speaks to how important it is to have parents on these panels and on calls with student audiologists and ENTs and LEN programs, had given our input about how the news impacted us and the ongoing relationship. You can be focused on technology, but still be open to a family's choices.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mm.
Absolutely.
And we treasure those people that can do it and keep them on speed dial.
Great. Yeah. Any more comments for the good of the order? Thank you, Sarah, for doing this. This was great. And it's nice to meet you.
Oh, very nice to meet you.
I used to be on the on the EHDI advisory board, the National EHDI advisory board too. So I met Janet many, many times. I don't think we've met
Okay.
though. Yeah,
Yeah, I don't think we have. I think
Yeah.
Janet is coming to North Dakota.
she is. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
She's
excited
a
for that.
wonderful speaker, so get there if you can. She's never met a microphone she didn't like.
Yep. Jaylee's actually speaking at that too.
Oh, great.
the-
That's great.
Yeah. So
Great.
Yeah,
Well,
thank you,
thanks,
Sarah.
ev-
Appreciate it. And we will get this out on the website and get it shared, and a great resource for our parents and professionals. So
mhm.
Well, thank you again for having me.
Thank you, Sarah. Good night, everyone.
Wish you all a good
Good
night.
night.
Thank you, Sarah. Nice to interpret for you and all of you. Keep up your good work.
Thanks,
It's
Renee.
always a
Thank you.
privilege. Thank you. Thank you, Tori.
yep, thank you.
Take
Bye.
care. You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
again.